So Valentine's Day apparently happened earlier this week. Anyway, let's talk about S2000. So this was on Jalopnik. I love perusing Jalopnik. I'm a frequent reader on the website. It is a car publication if you're not familiar with it. And one of the writers on Jalopnik, Colin Woodward, posted an interesting little op-ed about cheap S2000s. Here's a headline here. It's a $15,000 Honda S2000 with one photo and obvious mods. What's the worst that could happen? So he's debating buying this S2000. And as a connoisseur of S2000s, well, actually not really. I'm good at breaking mine. I do have some thoughts on this here. But he makes a point that this is possibly the cheapest clean title S2000 for sale in our Lord's year 2025. And it very possibly is. And you know what's crazy? What's crazy about this entire thing here, as I adjust my headset here on video, I got these cool little in-ear monitors and they keep falling out. So bear with me right there. Anyway, so S2000s, long gone are the days of finding a cheap S2000. It's just not going to happen anymore. It really isn't. They've become expensive. Parts for them have become expensive. And really finding a cheap one with a clean title can really be a chore. So what he did, he said, okay, this is probably the cheapest, possibly the cheapest clean title one for sale. Should you buy it? Allegedly, this one's got 125,000 miles, which isn't actually terrible for a 23-year-old sports car, by the way. But it has some questionable things done to it. You can tell that it's been modded. Also, the dealer who has this listed has only one picture of it. You don't know what the interior's like. You don't know what the engine bay's like. You certainly don't know what the underside of the car is like. And I'm here to say this could be a really, really good, bad idea. Does that make sense? A really good, bad idea? I'll elaborate, because this actually really reminds me of my experience with an S2000. In fact, if you're watching on video, YouTube and Rumble, my S2000 is sitting back here, not driving, but it is running. And in fact, Brian and I did some more work on it, on the tune for it earlier this week. And you'll see it sitting there with a K24 under the hood. That's not the stock engine anymore. But, and there's a reason for all of that. So my car, my S2000, I bought in 2018. I bought it in 2018 at, what was the price? $10,000. $10,000 with a clean title, mind you. And at the time, this is why Colin's story here reminds me of this, because at the time, it was the cleanest, well, the cheapest clean title S2000 in the country. So no salvage, none of that. Doesn't mean it hadn't been in a wreck before. It just means that hasn't been reported. I'll get to that. But anyway, what I did is I decided I wanted an S2000 and I wanted a cheap one for some reason. Probably because I didn't like how much S2000s were fetching even then in 2018. So after exhausting all the options locally, I started looking at dealer auctions. Now, if you're unfamiliar, dealer auctions, they aren't just salvage auctions. They are auctions where dealers buy and sell vehicles. Maybe they've got a vehicle on the lot that's just not selling well. Send it off to auction. Somebody else will buy it. Maybe they need some more inventory. Go to auction, buy a few cars. That's how a lot of this works. Problem is, you got to be a dealer 99% of the time to bid at these things. So I found myself a car broker who said he would go to the auctions and bid on my behalf. And you know what they say about car brokers, which is that every time a car broker dies, an angel gets their wings. But is what it is. He did help me get this car, and I bid on it through him, sight unseen. I was here in Colorado Springs, and the car was out in Florida. And I had like 5 pictures to go off of. And I said, yeah, go for it. It looks great. 3 months go by. Of course, trying to ship a car cheap takes a long time, by the way. I don't know if you've tried that before. 3 months go by, and I get a shiny, new to me S2000 on my doorstep. And immediately there were problems. Okay, so firstly, the cross member up in the front had a big old notch in it where An intercooler had previously been. It was missing heat shields in the engine bay that would have normally gotten in the way of a turbo. Okay. The engine mounts, the motor mounts were all dead. The ECU had obviously been had something spliced into the harness where the ECU went, like a piggyback ECU or a piggyback type of device. And it had been rear-ended. Yeah, the back of the car had been repaired somewhat poorly, actually. And that wasn't on the Carfax. So all of these things being said, you can find a cheap S2000. Yes, you can. Should you? Well, I've got more money into this S2000 and it still doesn't drive than if I had just bought a nice S2000. Do I regret it, though? Not necessarily. It's been a lot of fun. And, well, it just sits on jack stands most of the time. But anyway, the question is on this S2000 that Colin wrote about, should you buy it? Should you not? I don't know. Depends on your sense of adventure and how willing you are to have a car that doesn't run. So, hey, coming up after the break, we're talking to Jim Miller about his bid for city council. That's right here.